Hi, your blood like a winter freezes just like ice, and there's a cold, lonely light
Good morning.
that shines from you.
Are you having a good time? Park City's beautiful this time of year. And it's good that that fire that's a few miles south of us hasn't really clouded the valley here too bad. Well, I just love being with you. Thank you. Thank you for humoring me this morning. I hope that during our time together, you'll learn some things that will help you be more effective in what we do. And what is it we do? We make life better. We make life better. How do we do that? How do we make life better? Unicity. We do that by offering powerful products, powerful systems, powerful tools that can transform human health. Okay? So I have two parts this morning that I want to discuss with you. I want to talk really about what we have and why the world, particularly the Americas, need what we have. And then number two, about one of our products and how it can dovetail nicely with Get Fit 21 and how it can help to support and promote human health. So, what type of company are we? As I travel around the world and I ask people, what type of company are we? I get varied responses. Sometimes I get no response, right? People just kind of look and, they kind of twiddle their thumbs and they're like, I don't know what we are. But we need to understand what we are, okay? Our identity, right? If you want to change the world, you first have to know who you are and know what you stand for and know how you can help people. So we need to know who we are. And as was mentioned here, we are a human metabolic health company. Okay? That's what we are. Now, a lot of people might be like, huh? What does that mean? Well, a simple way to describe it is metabolism just refers to the sum total of chemical reactions the body does every single second. The body performs millions of chemical reactions. Reactions involved in bone health, joint health, brain health, heart health, liver health, kidney health, gut health, cellular energy, many other facets. This collectively is what's referred to as the metabolism of the body. And this is a dynamic. We have millions of reactions going on. This dynamic, though, this symphony, it should be a symphony in our body, can get thrown off. And we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But that's what the metabolism is. The sum total of chemical reactions that go on in the body. So, as a science-based company here at Unicity, we provide solutions to transform and support human metabolic health. Does that make sense? Do we think we could explain that to someone in simple terms? I hope so. Let's talk about the metabolic health state in the United States and in the Americas in general. How are we doing here? Are we doing good? No. Actually, not so good. We are facing a metabolic health crisis here in the United States. Here in the world, really, right? It's a plague that's sweeping the earth. It's interesting, if you look at history, there's been plagues and epidemics and diseases, famine that have wiped out large populations of the earth, right, as the earth has gone through its times and seasons. But this time is different, right? Before you would have plagues or famines or these diseases, the Black Plague, for example, right, that killed millions of people. That was a big problem. The problem today, though, is that it's self-inflicted, right? The world is killing itself, and we're not doing anything about it. We're just marching happily on to destruction as our waistline is burgeoning and our BMI is going through the roof. And we think that there's nothing. A lot of people think there's nothing they can do about it. That I am who I am, right? I'm stressed. I like to eat. That's just who I am. So we have heart disease here, right? Heart disease, number one killer in the United States. 1 out of every 3 Americans die from heart disease. Now, most people think heart disease is a disease of blood lipids, and that's certainly part of it. But glucose levels play a huge role in heart disease. Insulin resistance plays a huge role in heart disease. Okay? Heart disease is really a symptom of poor metabolic health. Okay? Our metabolism is broken down. Diabetes. You can see the numbers here. Diabetes is a huge problem. About 10% of the U.S. population is diabetic, 26% pre-diabetic. But a lot of doctors will tell you that that number is actually lower than we think it is. There's a lot of people who are diabetic and pre-diabetic that we don't know about. That number can be as high as 40 to 45%, depending on who you talk to and articles that doctors have written. Okay? What is diabetes? What's the problem with diabetes and metabolism? Insulin resistance. Insulin resistance. And how does that happen? You know the answer. How does that happen? Excess sugar, excess weight, right? It's a metabolic health disorder. High levels of glucose, repeated again and again, right? No one gets diabetes, type 2 diabetes, in an instant, right? It's not like you eat that delicious cake and boom, now you're diabetic, right? It's a slow and steady thing. Day after day, it builds up, okay? COPD. This is a big health problem as well. Coming from pollution, coming from smoking. Respiratory diseases have a place in metabolic health as well. Some really interesting articles that are starting to come online about respiratory diseases and insulin resistance. It's a new area. It's a niche area. But starting about 2016, there's a lot of papers that are now being published about that. Really interesting. Obesity. What's the obesity percentage in the United States? What percent of Americans are obese? 35? We think it's about 40%. 40% self-reported. Okay? 40% of the country obese. Wow. Isn't that crazy? 40%. I was reading an article by the World Health Organization where they think by 2025 that number is going to be closer to 55-60%. That's 6 years from now. So our metabolism is breaking down. It's not breaking down, it's broken. This is a storm. It's a metabolic health storm. It's a plague that's sweeping the earth. And it's leaving nobody untouched. So, this plague, this metabolic storm has been given a name. And it's called metabolic syndrome. And for a long time, doctors and medical professionals and scientists, they had a hard time agreeing on what metabolic syndrome is and how to define it and what are the criteria. But after talking about it for a while and having committee meetings ad nauseum, they finally came up with these criteria shown here. Sorry, I'm like thunder here. I guess when I want to make a point, boom. The storm, yeah. Elevated waist circumference, criteria number 1. And this is the numbers for the Americas. Over 90 centimeters for males, 80 centimeters for females. High triglycerides, low HDL, high blood pressure, high fasting blood glucose levels. Those are the 5 criteria for metabolic syndrome. And if you have 3 of the 5, you have metabolic syndrome. So it's really interesting. It's possible, looking at this criteria, to be relatively skinny looking and still have metabolic syndrome. And that happens a lot more often than you think. A lot of times we think, well, I'm skinny, so that means I'm healthy. No, not necessarily. There's a lot of people that we've studied and looked at, and in medical journals you can read about the people who are skinny but are metabolically very, very unhealthy. Sometimes more unhealthy than people who we might look at and say, well, that person really isn't healthy. So these are the 5 criteria for metabolic syndrome. If you have 3 of those 5, any 3, you have metabolic syndrome. Now, what are the rates of metabolic syndrome in the United States? So obesity is about 40%. Metabolic syndrome, about 35%. Okay? But again, a lot underdiagnosed. So 35% in the United States. What about Mexico? Higher. 45%. Colombia? 40%. Bahamas? 50%. Puerto Rico? About 35%. My friends, this is a plague that's sweeping the earth. The thing about this, though, you know, like the Black Plague, or you can even think of certain diseases today where there just isn't a cure for these diseases, right? I have a friend who was just diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, right? And that's there really aren't any good treatments. You know, there's a few things that can extend your life a year or 6 months to a year, but there really isn't a good treatment. That is not the case with what we're talking about and the health crusade that we're involved in today, right? This is totally reversible. And as David showed, we've had 20,000 people go through Get Fit 21, and they've changed their metabolism. This is reversible. And how is it reversible? Well, it's reversible because of you, our amazing coaches. We're on a crusade here. We're on a quest to transform human metabolic health. So these are the factors that destroy human metabolic health. We've talked about them. You've seen this picture. You're probably tired of seeing this picture. I'm tired of seeing this picture. It's a problem. Diet. The biggest one here, poor diet. If you look at the diet that most people eat today and you compare it to what our fathers and our mothers and our grandfathers and our grandmothers ate, is it the same? It's completely different. Completely different. We've gotten away from eating food, real food from nature. And we're now eating processed stuff that will, that has a shelf life of, 3.2 billion years, right? When the earth is destroyed, cans of Spam will still be floating around perfectly fine, ready for consumption. Poor diet. Lack of exercise. Okay? The rates of sedentariness are skyrocketing. Sleep. Sleep is a huge thing here. Sleep destroys human metabolic health, more so than any other factor. If I would rate these, I would rate sleep and diet being about the same for destroying metabolic health. As you know, when you don't sleep well, everything changes. You don't feel good. You don't act good. You can't think clearly. And there's a direct correlation between sleep and obesity, between sleep and any chronic disease you want to choose. Direct correlation between lack of sleep. And it's interesting, right? 10 or 15 years ago, all of the people in Silicon Valley and all the CEOs were all macho men. They were talking about, oh yeah, I go on 2 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep. Have you noticed that that's changing? The last 5 or 10 years, people are talking about, I get 8 hours of sleep. I get 10 hours of sleep. I get 6 hours of sleep. And I need it. Right? People are spending lots of money trying to get good sleep. But really, it comes down to proper nutrition. We have antibiotic use that destroys gut health, pollution, stress, anxiety. Other factors that we can mention like parasites, soil depletion. Soil depletion is a big one. Fruits and vegetables in our supply chain are not as full of vitamins and minerals, but more importantly, what we call phytonutrients, secondary metabolites. The food supply chain is devoid of these. So this is destroying metabolic health. So what do? How do we fight this plague? Do we just cry? Do we just, drown our sorrows in some good, yummy processed food? What do we do? What do we teach at Get Fit 21? What are the 3 pillars of human metabolic health?
Healthy nutrition, exercise, supplements.
Nutrition, exercise, and unicity supplementation. Those are the 3 pillars of human metabolic health. That's what we preach, that's what we teach, and these are the tools that we have to change human metabolic health. So let's talk about each of these. Food. Good food is medicine. Good food has medicinal compounds. So when you look at the pharmaceutical industry, when they have these compounds that they've developed to help with all these different diseases, where do they come up with those compounds? Do they just pull them out of thin air? No. Most of these compounds, 50% of all cancer drugs, come from natural products found in plants. 30% of all pharmaceutical drugs are compounds, either direct compounds from plants or derivatives thereof. Food has been given to us as a source of medicine. And if you look at traditional medicine cultures, it's about food. They use food, and they use different ingredients in food to help with different ailments. Have I told my story about trekking in China looking for plants? So I was looking for plants in China, in this small town in southern China. And I went to this restaurant. And I went in, and it was just a little mom and pop shop, this little hole in the wall. And I sat down, and I was overhearing the owner of the restaurant talking to the people who had come in a few minutes before, and they were ordering their food. Now, when you go to a restaurant here in the United States, and you sit down, and the waiter or the owner of the restaurant comes up, what do they say to you? They say, yeah, what do you want to eat? What do you feel like having, right? Or they say, well, I have, my special today is blah, 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 blah. Do you want that, right? What did this owner say to this people? He said, how are you feeling recently? I was like, how are you feeling? Is this Dr. Phil, right? Psychology? I mean, what? How are you feeling? And this couple, this Chinese couple, she said, well, yeah, actually, my back, and the local village, she's like, yeah, Mr. Wong, my back has kind of been bothering me again and stuff. And he was like, okay, I'll make you something for that. It was really interesting, right? Based on need state, they would give different foods, different food regimen. Wow. Do we think about that? Right? When we look at food, do we look at it and say, okay, salmon has EPA and DHA. Avocado has linoleic acid, and it also has polysaccharides in it, right? Do we think that way? Not usually, but we need to get back to thinking about food for its health benefits. Most of the time today, we think about food just as a calorie filler, okay? Yeah, I'm getting 400 calories, so I'm good. There's so much more to food than counting calories, and that's a principle we teach in Get Fit 21 and our other wellness initiatives that we have around the world. It's not about thermodynamics, input, output. Calories are not just calories. There's good calories and there's bad calories. There's calories that will fill your belly, but will spike. That was weird. That was embarrassing. Spike your blood sugar. And there's food that not only delivers calories, but it delivers natural products that can help to support glucose levels, cholesterol levels, heart health, brain health, joint health, etc. Okay? So food and what we choose to eat is so important. Now, how do we teach people? What do we tell them to eat? High protein. Good. High protein. Protein is one of the preferred metabolic fuels for the body, right? Carbohydrates. Healthy carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates, right? Healthy fats. Fats that go into the body, they break down into acetyl-CoA, and they form really cool molecules called ketones. Okay, we're going to talk about ketones. But when insulin is low, the body uses fat to produce ketones. What about exercise? What do we talk about exercise? Okay, high-intensity interval training, great form of exercise. Now, true or false? I can eat whatever I want as long as I exercise hard. I can exercise it away. False. But I was reading an article, though. If you ask people in the U.S., 75% of people would say that that's true. 75% of people in the United States would say that that is absolutely true. I can eat whatever I want as long as I dial up my exercise. And that is not true. That is blatantly false. So we eat to be lean. Okay? We eat to be lean. We exercise to be healthy. Okay? What does exercise do? Scientifically, if someone comes to you and says, why should I exercise? I eat good. I'm eating healthy. Why do I need to exercise? What do you say to them? Good. It helps. Exercise can help to reverse insulin resistance. It helps the body to become more sensitive to insulin. What else? Heart health. Yes. When we exercise, it induces a little bit of inflammation. Inflammation at low-lying levels is a good thing. It helps muscles and muscle cells to start to turn over and repair themselves and become stronger. Energy and endorphins. Excellent. Metabolic rate is increased. So those reactions in the body start humming properly. It's like a fine-tuned engine in a car. It can help with the aging process. In science, we call that senescence. And when reactions are thrown out of balance, the aging process can happen more rapidly. What was that here? Sleep. Yes. Big impact with sleep. Some other things about exercise. Exercise produces a compound in the body called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide helps with vasodilation. It helps to increase the diameter of the blood vessels. Okay? And when blood vessel diameter is increased, that means a couple of things. That means more nutrients can flow through the body and get to places where they need to go. But nitric oxide turns on gene expression in the body. Now, if you've heard me talk about before, I love to talk about gene expression. Simply put, a gene is a segment of DNA that acts like a switch. It turns on and off all the processes in the body. These are what we call master regulators of the body. We have 20,000 of these genes, these switches in our body. When you exercise, research has shown that you turn on about 450 unique switches that are not turned on otherwise. These are exercise-specific, exercise-dependent switches that we need to turn on. They need to be turned on and they need to be functioning properly, and exercise does that. One other point, I made this point at the Health Summit last year, but a lot of us are new and I want to make it again. Okay? Because eating healthy, what does that mean? Raise your hand if you took a class in 8th grade and the title of that class was How to Eat Healthy. So we talked about it last time. If we go all the way through college, how many years total of education do we have? 16 years of education. How many of those 16 years did you take a math class? Pretty much every year, right? You know, if we bowed out a little early because of our major and did something else, maybe it was 14 years of math, right? English, language, how many years? 16. History, right? I remember sitting in an art history class as a chemistry major in school and being like, this is pointless, man. Yeah. History, 16 years. How many years do we take a class that teaches you, okay, this is really what the food pyramid is all about. This is how to eat healthy. A semester? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But I asked my daughters, you know, my 8th grader is taking health right now, and I asked her last week, so school's been going for 3 weeks now, so what have you been learning about? Well, Dad, today we talked about STDs. Okay, this is a health class. All right, we had an interesting discussion about that, right? And the next week, okay, so what did you talk about? Well, we talked about drug abuse. Okay, good, right? Those are good things to talk about. But is that as important as talking about how to take care of your body? Right? We've been given this gift. Your body is one of the most important gifts that we've been given in this life. But the sad thing is, we're not taught about how to take care of it. There's no owner's manual, right? Oh, you have the body. Boom, right? Here's this owner's manual. It comes without an owner's manual. And miseducation, right? I was joking with my mother the other day, right? And I was like, Mom, you're poisoning me, right? And you're giving me juice and all these things. We were joking, but it's funny, right? As parents, we try to do the best we can, but we give things to our children and we eat things that we think are healthy, right? Fruit juice being one of those. Oh, orange juice, it must be healthy, right? All right. Supplementation. Why do we need to supplement? I eat healthy. I've learned how to eat healthy. I exercise. Do I need to take Unicity supplements? Yes. Why? I'm healthy. You can't get enough.
Too much and then you're in trouble.
The factors that we talked about several slides earlier, soil depletion being one of them, it's simply hard, and I would say impossible today, to get everything that we need. Even when we're trying to do everything that we can, there's still a gap that exists between where we are and where we can and need to be to get to the top of our mountain of metabolic health. There's a gap. And how do we bridge that gap? Unicity supplementation. That's the third key pillar of health. We need help to bridge this gap. And here at Unicity, with our metabolic health solutions, we provide a platform, a system to help bridge that gap. Now, why Unicity? We could talk about this for a long time. But why is Unicity different from other supplement companies out there? We could talk about exploration. We could talk about there's only 5% of the 600,000 species of plants on the earth have been discovered. We go out and we discover novel plants. We have over 40 different plants that we're commercializing right now that have been used in traditional medicine, that we've validated, we've vetted, we've analyzed the chemical structure. We're going through supply chain to grow these plants and incorporate them into our formulations. That in and of itself makes us unique. There's no other company on the planet that I know of that does that same thing. Clinical studies. When you launch a supplement in the United States, do you need to run clinical studies on your product? No. You can just start selling it. We run clinical studies on every product that we develop. Not only in-house studies, but studies with the best institutions on the planet, like Stanford University, the Cleveland Clinic, University of Sydney. Right now we're running a study we're really excited about with the top university in Thailand. And we have 30 different clinical studies going on with different organizations throughout the world. There's a really cool clinical study that I wish I could talk to you about. Maybe in a few months when I see you again, we'll be able to talk about it. But it's really exciting. One of the best collaborators in the world. Think of the best university in the world, and that'll give you a short list of who we're talking with. So when we talk about metabolism and what it means to be metabolically healthy and what we can do to be metabolically healthy, one of the most important things is brain health. Good metabolic health starts in a couple of different places. It starts in the gut, and we could talk about that with Bio 7, but it also starts in the brain. The brain is the command center of the body. I always marvel. When I was a pharmaceutical scientist, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and I was on the med chem team, medicinal chemistry. So we would develop molecules, we would synthesize them, and then we would have them evaluated for their activity. We would run clinical studies. And when you run a clinical study, you have a control group and you have a placebo group. We know this, right? The control group, you would give the active drug that you're developing to see if it works. The placebo group, what would they take? They would take nothing. Yeah, it'd be full of maltodextrin that breaks down into sugar, or sometimes sugar itself. You'd want to just fill it with something, right? I remember one clinical study we did. The placebo pill was covered so you couldn't see it, but inside there was nothing. It was just air. And we had them take that. The shell was a little bit thicker, so the person felt like they were taking something, but it was air. But I remember in that study, we were looking at a certain form of cancer with this pharmaceutical company, and in that placebo group, 10% of the placebo group actually saw their cancer go into remission by taking a pill that was full of air. What in the world? How is that happening? Physiologically, how is that possible? I'm taking an air pill, and that's changing chemical reactions in my body that's making cancer go into remission? What in the world is going on? The power of the mind. It's not just the physiological mechanisms that the brain is involved in. There's many studies showing that our mindset, our brain power, changes everything in the body. It can change metabolic reactions in the body. So, when our brain is metabolically out of balance, what happens? What happens? What are some of the symptoms of our brain? Depression. Yeah. So we could talk about the really bad depression, but the blues, poor mood. What else? Anxiety. Stress. Insomnia. Yes. Great. Insomnia. Huge issue when the brain's out of balance. Willpower. Perception. Mindset. Not to mention physiological issues. Okay? Throws all of the reactions out of balance. Conversely, when our brain is healthy, we feel like we can do anything. Willpower, mindset, perception, mood is improved. It changes everything. So metabolic health starts in the brain. That's one of the areas that it starts. And that's why we have been working on brain health, cognitive health for many years here at Unicity Science. When you look at it scientifically, though, all of these things that help to destroy brain health, if you look at it from a molecular reaction perspective, it's all about these switches, these genes, the chemical switches in the body. When our brain is not healthy, many of these switches are broken. Okay? So in our light switch analogy, a switch is useful only if it works, right? It turns on, the light comes on, we're able to see, we're able to do things. When we're done, we turn the light off, right? That's how a gene should work in the body. It turns on, it does its job, and then it turns off. And then it turns on, so it's like instruments in a symphony, it's like a light switch, it's like the train switching, what do they call them? The rail track switchers, right? You know, where you switch the direction so the train can go from one direction to another. I should not have mentioned that because I wasn't prepared to talk about that. Sorry. So we have these genes. These genes are becoming broken. So we asked ourselves a question 5, almost 6 years ago. Is there something that we could develop? Something that could help to fix those chemical switches, that can help to make sure that they're functioning properly? If we can do that, number one, we would have an amazing natural-based alternative to supporting metabolic health. Now, there's a few ways to support metabolic health. There's the natural way where we help to naturally guide these metabolic reactions and help them to function into place. And then there's the unnatural way where we use the brute force approach, right? Pharmaceutical industry, they use a brute force approach, and they do a great job. They design compounds that are not natural in the body. They bind to receptors, and they cause a response, and it's a good response. But what's the problem with some of those? Side effects. Yeah. So if we can use compounds from nature, compounds that have been around for thousands and even millions of years to help to support human metabolic health, then that's a good way to go. So we have developed and patented our genome-ceutical technology. And the idea of this is going around the world, finding natural compounds in plants, pulling these compounds out of the plant, and enriching these compounds that can help to support health of the chemical switches that are involved in all facets of health. So we have chemical switches involved in brain health, heart health, joint health, etc. So we wanted to look to see if we could find gene-regulating compounds for the brain. And after 5 years of hard work and hundreds of formulation attempts, we came up with Unicity. Now, the gene-regulating compounds from Unicity are from the yerba mate plant, found in South America, Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, Uruguay, that area there. Only place in the world where this plant grows. We found that in yerba mate, there's a certain class of compounds called chlorogenic acids. And chlorogenic acids, we found, help to turn on about 150 to 200 different genes, switches in the brain. And when we went in and looked at what these switches are involved in the brain, what do you think we found? What were they involved in? Cognitive function, mood, perception, mindset, optimism. So yerba mate has been used for thousands of years. We thought to ourselves, if we could selectively pull out the compounds that we want and the compounds that have been used in culture and traditional medicine there for thousands of years, we might be onto something. So we have our patented proprietary 5-step process where we handpick the yerba mate. It's fire roasted. That roasting is essential because when we add heat, we actually change the chemical composition of the plant a little bit. And that change is absolutely vital for these gene-regulating compounds. Extraction, we selectively pull out the gene-regulating compounds, we concentrate them, and then we run through a purification step that gets rid of any impurities. So impurities are a plague for bioactivity. You can have a compound that in and of itself is bioactive, but if you throw in even microgram, nanograms amounts of an impurity, it can sometimes wipe out and negate the activity of the whole compound. So it's essential that it's pure. So this is a really important step. Now, the gene-regulating compounds here are chlorogenic acids. Who here has heard of chlorogenic acids? Raise your hand if you've heard of that name. Okay, few people. Who here has read or seen an article in the news saying that coffee is healthy for you? Okay, good. Who here has read an article or seen an article saying that tea is healthy for you? Okay, good. Well, those articles that you're reading, when they say coffee and tea are healthy for you, the reason why they're saying that is because those two beverages have chlorogenic acids in them. And chlorogenic acids are amazing molecules for health. Gene expression, but they also have cholesterol-supporting properties, glucose-supporting properties. They help turn on nitric oxide. They do a lot of different things. Gene regulation, though, being of primary importance. Okay, so if we're talking about chlorogenic acids then, and we're relating it to these news articles, Unicity, 60 times more chlorogenic acids than the highest quality cup of coffee. Now, when we talk about highest quality, we're talking about, grown on the slopes of Indonesia, black coffee, whatever, right? Where you analyze the chlorogenic acid components and it's really, really high. If you take that best cup of coffee in the world, Unicity, 60 times more chlorogenic acids. What about green tea? The best type of tea, 100 times more chlorogenic acids than the best quality cup of green tea. Yerba mate, 375 times more chlorogenic acids than the yerba mate products that people that probably we've tried in the past that you could buy at the store here, right? In different colors of cans and stuff like that, or even you could buy the raw powder itself and do your own bombilla thing. But you would have to do that 375 times to get the same amount of bioactive compounds as in one serving of Unicity. Just think about that. You would have to drink 60 cups of coffee. Now think about how you would feel if you drank 60 cups of coffee in one day. I mean, it's not possible, right? This is the point that we're getting to. Using cutting-edge science, we've designed and engineered an amazing product where we've taken some of the secrets of Mother Nature and we've optimized them to help fulfill a need state for metabolic health. So, mood. I want to show some clinical studies that we've been doing. Now, you've seen some of these clinical studies, I'm sure. There's some that you might not have seen. But I want to show the power of this product. Okay, so mood. How can we assess mood? How would you do that if you wanted to assess someone's mood? Body language, okay. Anger, happiness. If you want to look at mood, psychologists will tell you if you want to look at mood, you just want to see about what percentage of the time are people happy. Okay? That's to date, that's one of our best indicators for mood, is to look at happiness. Now, how do you determine happiness? Optimism, survey. So some very smart psychologists at a pretty good university, Oxford University, one of the best universities in the world, developed a survey that has withstood the test of time. It's been used in 20,000 different clinical studies by psychologists looking at different things as a measure for happiness. And I use this for some of the other work that I was doing on volatile organic compounds and ferrocents. We would use this as a first step assessment. But the Oxford Happiness Study, you take it and it shows you with good statistical significance if someone's happiness is improving or not. So we did this with Unicity. We found that there was a 20% increase in happiness immediately in taking Unicity. And in long-time users, that stat still held. It didn't help just once. It helped after people had been taking Unicity for 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years now. 20% increase in happiness right away in taking this product. That's huge. So back to my story about the placebo effect in the pharmaceutical industry. We thought to ourselves, well, if we are improving mood, if we're improving happiness, then if that placebo angle in the pharmaceutical industry holds true, then we, using this product, should start to see some physiological benefits of Unicity, right? Potentially, we might see cholesterol being supported, glucose being supported, weight loss, right? That's what everybody wants to talk about. Weight loss. Are we a weight loss company? No. But are we the best in the world at helping to support healthy weight loss? Yes. Because weight loss is a side effect of bringing our metabolism back into balance. Okay? There's a lot of unhealthy, unsustainable, crazy things you can do. And all we need to do is look at Instagram influencers or blogs or articles to see about all the crazy things people are doing to lose weight. And some of those work for 2 weeks, for 60 days, right? But are they going to work for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Enough said. So we ran a clinical study in Zurich, Switzerland, where we had people who were already taking Unicity products. Okay? They were already taking Complete. and some of our other products. And we said, that's great. Eat this type of diet and take Unomate once a day. And by the way, the diet that we told them to take, they're like, we've already been eating that diet for 2 years. And we're like, okay, great. Exercise. We've already been exercising an hour a day for several years. Okay, great. Well, then just take Unomate for 30 days. We took blood work before and after, and these are the results. Blood glucose data shown here, showing that we're supporting healthy HbA1c and healthy blood glucose levels. Okay, 4.5% change in 30 days. Impressive results. Now you might say, well, that's only 4.5%. I want to see like 40%. 4.5%, 30 days, that's really good.
These are already healthy people.
And these are healthy people. Yes, great point. So these people, their average age was 45 years old. Average weight, 72 kilos. And for Europeans, 72 kilos. This was done in Switzerland. For Swiss people, 72 kilos. Those are healthy people. Now, a lot of times clinical studies are run on people that are 400 pounds, cholesterol through the roof, right? Of course you're going to see changes here. We don't do that when we run clinical studies. We use healthy people because we want to show that these products benefit the general population. They benefit us. Blood glucose data, blood lipid data, look at that. Triglycerides. Cholesterol HDL quotient, which is one of the best predictors that doctors use now to look at cardiovascular disease and other conditions. Total cholesterol. HDL cholesterol, wow, look at that, 12%. LDL HDL quotient, you see here the data. What about blood pressure? That was surprising. Okay? We see supporting of healthy blood pressure here by taking Unomate for 30 days. Now, I read a lot of papers, scientific papers, and I have not seen a paper with a clinical study where one product can help support health in all these different areas. I haven't seen it besides this one here. And we're in the process of publishing this data. It was submitted to a journal about a month ago, and we should hear back any day now about it being submitted. It will be submitted to some journal, and when it is, we'll be sure that that's sent to you so you can use that and show that if you want. So as we were using Unomate and studying it, we started hearing from athletes about the benefit of Unomate. They were saying, it's interesting. I know my body, and when my usual run is this, and now since I've been taking Unomate, my run is now this, right? And people would say, in weightlifting, I used to be able to do this, now I could do this. And we thought that was interesting. Some of our Team Unicity members, this gentleman here, our gold medalist, I talked with him at our Korea convention in July. And he said, there's just something about Unomate. When I take it, I feel better. My energy's more. But the interesting thing he said is not just physical energy. It was through a translator. And so we were trying to describe it. And after about a minute or two, guess what he was talking about? He was talking about mindset. He was talking about willpower. He was talking about mental toughness and stamina. Right? In a race, in athletics, there's always that breaking point, right? Where your mind starts to play games with you. There's that breaking point mentally in a tough, stressful day, right? There's that breaking point. To be able to push through that breaking point, to have the right mindset, invaluable, priceless. So we looked at Unomate and health. And so we first looked at muscle cells. We wanted to see if Unomate was doing something with muscle cells. This is a study that we're doing with Dr. Ben Bickman, who's on our scientific advisory board. He's a professor of exercise performance and physiology at Brigham Young University, just down the road here in Provo, Utah. And what we found, and you don't need to, this is all mumbo jumbo here, but the takeaway is that when you take muscle cells and you exert them. There's stressful situations. The amount of free radicals that are produced in these muscle cells go up. And you know that free radicals damage muscle cells. They damage all cells, right? We don't want high amounts of free radicals. So that's these light blue lines here. Well, we then gave the muscle cells Unicity. This about the same dosage of Unicity as would normally be in circulating muscle cells when we drink it. And what we found is that Unicity suppresses production of radicals by over 50% here. And that's seen through at least between 6 to 9 hours. After about 12 to 24 hours, it returns to normal. But again, we're protecting muscle cells here. We looked at performance. We assayed performance, people taking Unicity before and after. And we found that this wasn't just an anecdotal thing, that really performance improved taking Unicity, both aerobic and anaerobic or resistance exercise. Okay, ketones. So we started thinking about, well, why would this be the case? Yes, there's this gene expression mechanism, but is there something else going on? I remember reading a random paper about chlorogenic acids, and it was from the 80s, okay? Was the keto diet around in the 80s? No. They were talking about ketoacidosis and whatnot. And a doctor there was a one-liner in this paper saying chlorogenic acids kind of helped with ketoacidosis, when it's a big problem in people. Chlorogenic acids kind of helped to bump that down a little bit and actually helped to increase production of good ketones, healthy ketone bodies like butyrates and whatnot. And from that line, we were like, well, why don't we look at ketone levels in Unicity? Maybe it's doing something with ketones. So what are ketones? As a Get Fit 21 coach, and I come up to you and I say, hey, so what is this keto thing everybody's talking about? What are ketones? What do you say? Good. Fat cells turn into energy. So these long-chain fatty acids are broken down into molecules called ketones. And these ketones are a great energy source. It's like pouring, the Boy Scout fuel, the white gas on the fire, right? It really helps with energy. But ketones in the body are only produced if what? Insulin is low. Insulin needs to be low. When insulin is low, then the fat can be used as a fuel, as a resource. Now, ketones are known as the fourth macro. Okay? So what are the other macronutrients that we have that the body uses for fuel? Protein, fats, carbohydrates. Yeah. Ketones are this fourth macro. They come from fat, so it's kind of you could do a 3B sort of thing, but fourth macro. Now, what are ketones used for? Energy, we talked about energy, but for what? Where in the body? How? Brain. Good. There are certain organs in the body every organ, every tissue, every muscle needs fuel. But there's some organs that that they need fuel quickly, and they like to have these quick reserves that they can use. The brain's one of them. What else? Heart, another one. Muscles, okay? So we looked at ketone levels. Before that, ketones are a hot thing right now, right? If you look at the keto diet and ketones, right? This is looking at Google Trends. Really nothing really known. 2015, nothing about ketones. And then really, it's only been the past year and a half, boom. It's a big thing now, okay? Everybody's starting to learn about ketones. Now, how are most people getting ketones? What are the strategies that companies are using and that people are doing? Okay, they're trying to increase their fat intake, right? So everybody's taking MCT oil, right? Gobs of MCT oil and other oils. But that only works if carbs are low and insulin is low. Yeah. What's the other method they're using? These ketone supplements, yeah. So these are ketones that have been synthetically made. Now, I have nothing wrong with synthetic. I'm a synthetic chemist. I'm proud to admit that. Natural product synthetic chemist. But they make these ketones. And are the ketones that they make, that you take the supplement, are they the same as the ones the body produces? They're not. Okay? So you're flooding the body with 20, 30 grams of ketones. So if you look at with individual molecules, that's millions and millions of molecules of ketones that you're flooding the body with. Now, is that a healthy thing? Jury's out on that. But rather than flooding the body with ketones, there's another way to increase ketone production. Ketone production in the body is called ketogenesis. Ketogenesis, production in the beginning, right? That's the name for the body's term of making ketones. The body makes ketones naturally. So what if you could naturally increase the amount of ketones that were made? That'd be cool, right? So rather than flooding the body with, 30 grams of synthetic ketone, what if you could do this and turn the switches on in the body that increased ketone production naturally? That'd be pretty cool, right? Well, that's what we found the Unicity does. Did you know that? Unicity increases ketone levels by 50%. Look at that. We had a bunch of people take their ketone levels before. We made sure they were in a state of ketosis. Then we had them take Unicity. And immediately, 30 minutes, about a 40% increase. 60 minutes, 60% increase. And this kept going up even until 2 hours. How many other products do that? To my knowledge, in reading the scientific literature, Unicity is the only product in the industry that supports and promotes ketogenesis, the body's natural production of ketones. That's cool. That's freaking cool. When I saw this, I didn't sleep that night. That was really cool. I was just so excited. I was thinking about other experiments to run and what we could do and the impact on people. This was really, this is amazing. So these are some of the benefits that ketones can have in the body. And with Get Fit 21, our nutrition and exercise components, we teach people how to help the body promote ketogenesis. And now when you add on top of that, Unicity, man, we now have a juggernaut product. If you wanted to, your coaches and people that you coach, do they like the keto diet? Is that a big thing? Do you hear that a lot? Is that popular? Man, it is. What a perfect system to help to support metabolic health. Okay, so in that regard, we wanted to look at Unicity combined with other products and other systems. So what we wanted to do is we ran a clinical study. We had people take Unicity and then they took Complete and they went through the Get Fit 21 program. Okay? And we wanted to see, so there was this big argument between my science team. There was two different camps. There was one camp that said blood levels change slowly. Red blood cells turn over slowly. And so you're not going to see results in 21 days. And when Get Fit 21, we see amazing results in inches and amazing physiological changes. But a lot of people were skeptical. Some of my science team, they were skeptical if we were going to see blood changes. No, you're not going to see it. Other people said, you might see it. But out of my science team, I'll tell you what, about 80% of them were like, you're not going to see anything in 21 days. Okay. But that's why we do science, right? So we ran the study. We had a group take Unicity, they took Complete, 21 days, blood work before, blood work after. Do you want to see the results? Yes. Boom. These are the blood work results. Okay, total cholesterol. This is percent change on the y-axis here. You look at that, total cholesterol. LDL. HDL down just a little bit, has healthy overall to begin with. Triglycerides, the ratio, glucose, fasting glucose, insulin, HbA1c. This was really cool. Look at that. Insulin levels, 5%. 21 days? Healthy people. 21 days. Does that provide validation to what we're doing? I mean, my friends, that's what we're doing here. This is the program. This is the system. This is how we change the world. Look at that. And we're not talking about 6 months or a year. We're talking about 21 days, changing someone's life, changing their health. And we looked at the body measurements as well: weight, inches on waist to hip ratio, neck inches. Neck inches, that was interesting. So when you look at body measurements, neck is one of the biggest indicators that metabolism is changing. When neck inches go down and when they change, that's when you know that something is happening. It's one of the first indicators. And so for 21 days to see that going down by about 10%, a 10% change, it's huge. Yes. Unicity once a day for 21 days. Yes. Okay. One other thing I want to talk about. We have a crisis going on in the world today. It's a metabolic health crisis. That metabolic health crisis is affecting brain health. It's affecting our overall quality of life. We talked about stress and anxiety and reduced mood. There's a mental health crisis going on in the world today. Huge crisis going on. These are some of the numbers in the United States. Okay? 25 million adults take antidepressants, a 60% increase from just 8 years ago. Mood is being affected significantly here. I mean, you look at that number and you look at the people. Numbers are only as David said, numbers are important only as they represent people. We need to be able to see people. We need to be able to look into the eyes of these people, to see people that we love, people that we know that struggle with their metabolic health. And then to see how a science-based product can change their lives. So there's a lot of interesting papers talking about the ability of chlorogenic acids to help support brain health in this area. And so I'm not going to say too much more about that, but we're doing some really interesting studies right now that we think you'll find really cool, that we hope to publish soon. We're doing some really interesting studies about productivity and mindset with Unicity. Who feels that Unicity helps them to be more productive throughout the day? Yeah. I mean, anecdotally, it's like 100%. But we're not an anecdotal company. We're a science-based company, and we're running some really cool studies. Now, what about the bitter taste of Unicity? That bitter taste. What about the bitterness?
Don't change it.
What? Okay. What do you say if someone comes up and says, man, you know, I hear what you're saying about this Unicity thing, but I tried it once. It's the bitter taste. I can't do it. What do you say to them? Mix it? Okay, good. Drink it anyways? Yeah, toughen up. Get used to it. Mix it with something like matcha? Okay. Now, does bitter play any role in health? So, bitter is good. In traditional medicine and ethnobotany, I remember the ethnobotanist that taught me, we were out in the Cook Islands. And I was a young guy, and I was with this ethnobotanist. And I was about to eat something. And I was about to eat it, and he slapped my hand, and he's like, you don't eat that. I'm like, why not? He's like, smell it. I smelled it, and he says, does it smell sweet? I said, yeah. He's like, well, if it smells sweet, it probably tastes sweet. And most plants that are toxic taste sweet, actually. Did you know that? Most plants that are, a lot of times we'll think, oh, toxic plants taste vile and bitter. No. Actually, traditional medicine, ethnobotany, in traditional Chinese medicine, the plants that they use all the time are very bitter. There's a plant that has great medicinal properties that's called the king of bitters. That's its English name, the king of bitters. Bitter is good. So on our tongue, we have different receptors that pick up different tastes: sweet, sour, umami, bitter, right? And these are like locks, and the molecules are like keys. They fit in the lock, and then they send a response. This is sweet. This is bitter. This is whatever. On our tongue, we have a lot of bitter receptors. Now, when we are born, we have more sweet receptors than bitter receptors on our tongue. But actually, by the time of age 6 or 7, that starts to change. And as we go to adulthood, we start to get more and more bitter receptors. Now, what's interesting is that people who are on a low carbohydrate diet, they start to develop more and more bitter receptors on their tongue. And the sweet receptors start to go away. Now, there's been a lot of really interesting research on sweet and sugar and obesity. And there's some really interesting papers that are starting to come out showing that if something is sweet, like excessively sweet, even though the sugar levels aren't super high, it can still have a detrimental impact on physiology. Still needs to be teased out, but something interesting here. When it comes to bitter, though, here's a paper that was published, and these papers are starting to come out the last 2 years. This paper was published 6 months ago, showing that we have bitter receptors, not just on our tongue, but we have bitter receptors in our heart, in our brain, in our lungs, in our gut, and other areas. What? Why? I mean, it's not like your gut is like tasting bitter, right? What's going on? Bitter receptors actually are being shown to be beneficial in human health. So the bitterness of Unicity is one of its selling points. It targets bitter receptors. It helps to support health in different areas of the body. And it's part and parcel of this amazing product that can help support mood, can help support overall human metabolic health, and ketone production, sport performance, other aspects of brain health. Have we made our point? Yes. So, just as we talked about, no one has metabolic syndrome in a day, right? But the power of doing little things, okay? And we could have the world's expert up here come and talk about the little things and how they matter. But really, and you probably should, kick me off the stage, that'd be good. But really, the power of doing something day in and day out and the benefit that can happen is incalculable. Here at Get Fit 21, with our system, with our products like Unicity, with the benefits here that we've talked about clinically, what if you were to take Unicity every single day? And many of you are and have been for many years. But just think about the benefit of those people that you're trying to reach, people that you love, people that you care about. We're on a quest here. This is a passion. Just think how their lives would be different if they took Unicity once a day, every day. Now, when it comes to little things, as a geeky scientist, I think of catalyst. Okay, what is a catalyst? Catalyst is something that helps a reaction go faster. Yep, it helps it go faster, but it also helps a reaction happen at all. There are some reactions that the energy that it takes for that reaction to happen is too high. A catalyst lowers that energy so the reaction, which would not normally happen, can now happen. Now, another characteristic of a catalyst with this molecule is this catalyst molecule can take another molecule and convert it from unfinished to a finished product without being consumed. So the catalyst can actually take hundreds of thousands and even millions of molecules and convert them from their raw, think about Get Fit 21, from their raw, unfinished form to a finished state. Catalyst, changing millions of molecules. So how does that relate to what we're doing? Unicity, a catalyst for health. What about our wellness initiatives? Get Fit 21 is a metabolic health catalyst. It can help to improve and support metabolic health, more so than anything else that we've seen in the industry. And why does it do this? Well, it's a combination of a great system, a great company, amazing, passionate leaders like you, and coupled with great science. Science that's clinically validated, that's innovative, blue ocean, exclusive, and powerful. So, thank you, my friends.
I'll still stand here.